Vault 11 is universally regarded as the darkest social experiment in the entire Fallout franchise. If you've played New Vegas, you think you know the whole story. You know about the annual sacrifices, the corrupt voting blocks, and the final, ironic reveal delivered by the Vault-Tec mainframe. But no one understands the ending, not even you. For over a decade, the community has accepted that Vault 11 concluded with a tragic suicide pact after a successful defeat of the Vault-Tec's mainframe after the Vault lost itself to violence. But the physical evidence left in the entrance tells a completely different story. It wasn't a suicide, and it wasn't Vault-Tec. It was an act of desperate, bloody self-defense against the true enemy of Vault 11, which wasn't the corporation at all. The only survivor was forced to protect himself against the very democracy that claimed to keep him safe. Don't believe me? Let's look at the evidence. It begins not with the voting blocks or the manipulation. The story doesn't start with the note at the entrance. No, the story of Vault 11 begins with the very first Overseer in 2077 sealing themselves, along with the other Vault citizens, into the Vault to save themselves from Hellfire. We don't know exactly when he broke the news, but we do know what happened in response. We can find a summary by Gus Olsen years or perhaps even decades later, when he went through the archives to find a fix to their current situation. When he says, "Well, I've been through the archives, and I can tell you, you won't find the answer there. You'll find an account of the first Overseer, who entered the Vault as the only citizen aware of the sacrifices that would have to take place. But he didn't have the answers either. If he did, surely he would have foreseen the citizens' anger when he broke the news. Surely he would have guessed that they would want to choose a sacrifice democratically." So here we learn a few important truths. First, the original Overseer, the one who presumably knew the most about the experiment, and who was personally hired by Vault-Tec, probably didn't know that the experiment would end if people refused. He believed what his superiors had told him, that everyone would die if they refused. The second thing we learn is literally the moment where everything in this vault goes wrong. The Overseer is allowed to choose the selection process. I will get to the proof later, but for now take my word on it. In other words, the Overseer at this moment could have refused, remained strong, and set up literally any system to choose candidates. The first Overseer chose the coward's way out. Instead of establishing a fixed, objective, possibly random rule, he left the selection process open, allowing the citizens to vote because it was the easiest, and simultaneously leaving them without an Overseer with any knowledge at all. Why did he do this? Well, because democracy made him feel guiltless that way. His hands remained clean. And third, this is the first time we see that, for Gus at least, the problem isn't the corruption itself. It's the democracy that allows it to run rampant. Interestingly, the game expressly states this, again through the voice of Gus Olsen, when he continues, "Surely he would have guessed that they would want to choose a sacrifice democratically, in the way that we citizens are accustomed to washing our hands of terrible deeds, and that his name would be at the top of the polls, and that the simultaneous vacancy of Overseer and Martyr would forever fuse the two positions here in Vault 11. But he didn't. He had the answers no more than any of us, and the records state that after the citizens discovered that the sacrificial chamber's password was his wife Betty's first name, and his door was sealed so he could be offered as the first sacrifice, he walked down into that room, crying like a child." He uses the phrase, democratically washing our hands, and that's exactly what it is, isn't it? Picture yourself in the position of the Vault Dwellers who found themselves in Vault 11 as the bombs dropped. You and your family, your children, are safe. You just found out that Vault-Tec has subjected all of you, including your leader, to kill one of your own every year, forever. The Overseer knew, and chose to come down here anyway. Why? Because living for a year would still be better than being trapped on the surface with the bombs. You now have the choice to implement whatever system you want. You can make a system that favors no one at all, You could live your life completely normally, like us, like any human who lives their life knowing that you could die at any time. But is that enough for these people? Do they decide to accept their fate, including their eventual death, with dignity and live their lives the best they can? No. They want to use the sacrifice of one person per year as a weapon. They want to turn it against someone. They want to turn it into an us versus them. It can be anyone they're angry at. At first, it was the overseer, and it made sense. It's so funny, though, because his knowledge of Vault-Tec's plans didn't save him. He was, ironically, the first victim of mob rule, not a victim of Vault-Tec, but of his friends and fellow citizens of Vault-11. What did it take to murder their leader collectively? All it took was finding out he knew there would be an experiment and knowing that he was not allowed to do anything about it. What's more, the people of Vault-11 did not want to feel guilty for their actions. They didn't want to kill him directly. Sure, they wanted him to be killed, but when it's put to a vote where everyone is involved, it's called justice now, rather than mob rule. If they'd just taken him in hand and ended his life, well, that'd be one thing. But if they chose, it's called democracy now, instead of a lynching. And it's there, right at that moment, that Gus says everything that follows was set in stone. Not by Vault-Tec, they weren't involved. They didn't force the citizens to do this, but for Gus, at least there's a direct line from, "I urge you all to take the journey I took, to remember that it wasn't so long ago that we were ruled by our civility and our dignity, and that those times were times when we didn't have to be quite so ashamed." Straight to being disgusted and saying, "To fully comprehend why we continue to have these elections, despite the unfettered corruption that has plagued it for what must be decades by now." But that begs the question, how bad can it really get? I mean, democracy's not so bad, right? It's better than any other system. Don't the writers concede that it's better than autocracy, for example? Oligarchy, perhaps? In Gus's time, he felt ashamed that they had weaponized the democratic processes. We don't know how long had passed, but we know that Gus pulled information from the archive rather than just recollecting it himself. So at least for him, for one man, the events of the first overseer were outside of living memory. Already democracy had gone from the only way to something he felt ashamed of. Already, he says, "There was a simpler time when elections meant shaking hands and kissing babies. But now, with the rise of the voting blocs, and this infestation of bribery, drug trafficking, smuggling, and God knows what else, we want to know why." Maybe you have had occasion to question the processes that define your society today. On one hand, less people die in wars than ever. But on the other hand, modern voting processes mean all of us share in the decision. For those who die, the decision to kill them was democratized. We share in the decision-making process, and we share with the blood on our hands. So Vault-11 asks us, how bad can this get? Well, let's find out. Sometime after the prepared speech of Gus Olson, ombudsman for the annual selection of Overseer, we enter the kind of election that he describes, one ruled by voting blocks. Not only does the democratic process allow for individuals to wash their hands of any decisions, but the groups and parties that individuals form allow for those individuals to simultaneously ensure their desires win through collective voting, while also allowing those individuals to make their guilt a collective guilt. No one person is guilty if everyone votes. We call this moral diffusion, where no one is ever really accountable for anything. They aren't murdering a fellow citizen, no, they hardly did anything at all. It was merely the collective will of the Vault, and to a lesser extent, the will of the voting bloc, and to an even lesser extent, really almost no extent at all, themselves as a person. It has been said that no one snowflake ever felt any guilt for causing an avalanche, and the systems that spring up around democracy to ensure winning a vote and individual guiltless safety in numbers help protect from a nagging conscience. Still, there's always a doubt in democracy, isn't there? The knowledge deep down buried that making a collective decision is still making a decision, and the guilt, while shared, still exists. Anyway, Vault-11's final election still shows signs on the walls, literally. What was once a community coming together to punish the representation of Vault-Tec among them has now become an actual event. Let's read through a helpful election guide to see who we would vote for if we were there. Remember that the election is only briefly for the position of Overseer, followed at the end of the year by becoming the Vault's collective sacrifice, where you're expected to end your own life. The guide begins, "Dear fellow Vault Dweller, congratulations. Your dedication to the democratic process is the bedrock upon which the continued stability of Vault 11 is based. Now, to help you make your decision for this year's election, the coalition of Vault 11 voting blocks has put together this handy Dweller's official guide to obtaining overseers democratically, or do good, that contains the summary of the leading candidates for overseer, as well as their statements, key positions, and most importantly, endorsements. Sincerely, Roy Gottlieb, Chairman, Coalition of Vault 11 Voting Blocks, and President of the Justice Block." Interestingly, we find that the president of one of the blocks is the one writing the election guide. There are 6 voting blocks, but only one of them signs their name on the header. Luckily, each candidate's name is only accompanied by a brief introduction, written by the candidate themselves, followed by the blocks who are endorsing them, the parties that want them to sacrifice themselves. First, we have candidate Henry Glover, endorsements, Utilitarian Block, Divine Will Block, Allied Service Workers Block. I'm a devoted husband and father of 6 beautiful children. My oldest, Sam, was on the honor roll this quarter, and I couldn't be prouder of him. My youngest, Henry Jr., just said his first word, and it was Dada. We've got this bond already, and he's still just a baby. Friends, when you go to the polls this election, I want you to think of your own children. Then, I want you to think of Sam and Henry Jr. Picture their faces. Nate Stone should be the overseer, not me. This guy really lays it on thick, doesn't he? He doesn't want to be overseer, and he doesn't want to die. And it's easy to see why, right? 6 children, a beautiful wife, a new baby boy. The only question on your mind is, who would want this guy elected in the first place? Oh, also, he makes it clear who should be killed instead of him. He doesn't hide behind the collective guilt of democracy. When his life is on the line, he says it outright. Kill Nate, not me. But on to our next.
Candidate Donna Haley. Endorsements. Human Dignity Block. United Vault Technicians Block. I'm aware of the rumors circulating about me. I want everyone to know that they are vicious lies being spread by other candidates in a desperate smear campaign. I've never in my life done anything so depraved, let alone for such things. But even if I had, that still wouldn't mean you should vote for me. Consider the fact that I'm grossly underqualified for the position, and that both of my opponents are far more deserving. I know nothing about governance. You would be hard-pressed to find a worse candidate than me. I can promise you that my administration would be a disaster.
Say what you will, but it's nice to see some women empowerment in the Fallout universe, you know what I mean? Unfortunately for Donna, it doesn't sound like she gets to hide behind a family. She's accused of being an adulterer, so we know that she's married, but beyond that, she mostly says she's inexperienced and would make a terrible overseer. But we know the secret here. Considering the overseer position is more of a byproduct of the election rather than the main event, I personally don't find the argument very compelling. If I had to vote between these two, I know who I'm voting for. But before we get too hasty, let's hear from our final candidate, Nathan Stone. Endorsements. Justice Block. This is ridiculous. I shouldn't even be a candidate. And I wouldn't be if it weren't for all the dirty backroom politics going on around here. It's sickening. You should all be ashamed. Oh, Nate. Trying to shame the people voting for you. Not a great tactic, buddy. See, Nate is unfortunately coming to realize what a few unlucky people come to see in a democracy. What it feels like to be on the other side of a vote. I don't want to be too hard on our buddy Nate here, not until we have the full story. I mean, I hardly know the guy. But let's analyze this thoroughly. All his life, Nate has voted to kill his fellow citizens. Every year like clockwork, Nate probably went to his local booth and voted to sacrifice someone exactly like him. Was it corrupt enough in those elections? Should you all be ashamed of last year's election? Well, I guess not. Because Nate was voting in that election No doubt, had you asked him, he would have admitted to the fact that the entire system was corrupt. Have you noticed that? If you ask someone about the democratic processes, they'll happily tell you about how corrupt and untrustworthy it all is in one breath, and then in the very next, tell you about how their candidate is really the only option. There's always just enough faith in the system, in the processes to justify this election. So long as you win, of course. But still, I am curious. What could have happened to make Nate so angry? Did something recent change his mind? Why does he say specifically, I shouldn't even be a candidate? What an odd statement.
What an odd thing to say.
Let's see if we can find out why. The very next thing that happened is a brutal murder spree by Nate's wife. Guess he does have a family. And like Nate, she apparently seemed to think that the processes she lived under were fine, certainly not enough to warrant violence. That is, until they were directed towards her and her husband. Still, she did do one thing positive. She united the entire vault against a common villain, her. For the first time since the original Overseer, no one had any questions about who to vote for. One of the presidents of the other voting blocks puts out a notice postponing the election.
Fellow citizens, due to the tragic events of the past few days, the coalition of Vault 11 voting blocks has unanimously decided to postpone the election for Overseer pending further investigations into the murders. Your security team wishes you to know that they are working tirelessly day and night to find the perpetrators and are already following up on a number of promising leads. God willing, if the killer is apprehended swiftly, we may have found a promising new candidate for Overseer. Sincerely, Terry Hart, President, Human Dignity Block.
Now, let's just pause here for a second. Remember that these people are voting to kill someone. The election campaigns are in place to ensure that people can largely, collectively, imagine guilt in the person they elect. But other than the first Overseer, we don't have any reason to suspect that any of the people chosen for sacrifice have wronged anyone else in any way. And even then, that first Overseer really didn't do anything wrong. He just knew something that was going to happen a little earlier than everyone else. Anyway, this is the secret of democracy. Weaponizing violence collectively is not a crime. But if anyone uses violence against that same collective, even to protect their family, they're a murderer. The collective can vote and send someone to die every year, forever. But the second you choose to try and put a stop to that, you don't just threaten the individual, you threaten the entire system. And that's something that system cannot abide. When we're finished reading the notice about the postponement of the election, we can read about Nate's wife, the murderer, who was caught soon after. The following is an excerpt from the deposition of defendant Catherine Stone by Vault attorney Gerard Miles. Okay, let's pick up where we left off, Kate.
Catherine.
Sorry, right, Catherine. I keep forgetting.
My husband calls me Kate.
You were telling us of a discussion you allegedly had with Roy Gottlieb of the Justice Block.
Not allegedly. Had. We've been through this.
It's still your word against his, Miss Stone, but please, the discussion.
He said my husband's name had come up in their meeting.
The candidate endorsement meetings?
Yes. They were going to endorse him. He wouldn't say why, but I know my husband has had regular poker games with them, and he's been on a winning streak lately.
And according to you, what did Mr. Gottlieb offer?
He said he could sway his block, prevent the endorsement, but only if I...
Only if you what, Catherine?
Only if I...
Only if you performed sexual favors.
Yes.
Was this just for Mr. Gottlieb?
No, all the block leadership. They're friends.
And you agreed?
What else could I do? They had the majority.
How long did this go on before the endorsements came out?
I don't know, a month maybe?
And when they came out, and your husband was endorsed despite your supposed agreement, was that when you decided to kill the members of the block?
Yes. I thought the majority's pretty slim. If I thin things out a little, especially in the leadership, someone else might get elected.
Assuming you weren't caught.
No, Mr. Miles. I expected to be caught. That was my best chance. Now they'll elect me.
A confessed murder. You think voters would be willing to risk putting you in charge?
They have to pick somebody and live with their reasons.
Yes, but...
Wait and see.
Well, there it is. Just about the most despicable thing you'll hear today, folks. The repeated gang rape by those who are in authority to preside over the elections of our democracy. Sound familiar? Just kidding. Politics aren't real unless they're in Fallout. How did this happen? Isn't the entire point of a democracy to put power in the hands of the people to prevent political overreach? Without any kings, without any autocrats, shouldn't the abusers of power be unable to perform such despicable overreaches like what we're reading about? I mean, isn't that the whole point? Isn't that the pitch of democracy? And yet, here it is. And in real life? Well, we both would know a few examples, wouldn't we? Examples of political leaders and activists using their power to take from the very people they're supposed to protect. Some from your side and some from mine, no doubt. There's a saying from an author I love.
If the rule you followed brudged is, of what use was the rule?
We all follow the laws of the land, or in this case, the vault. We put our faith in leaders and systems and push faith in ourselves away, hoping that the guilt we should feel goes away with it. Yet, time and time again, our leaders fail us. This failure is perfectly encapsulated in the trial we just heard. Any rational person listening thinks to themselves that if the system were not corrupt, the 4 rapists would be held responsible. They should be on trial, and Catherine should have been protected. Miss Stone is instead the one on trial. She really didn't do anything wrong. She would have continued to be raped by her victimizers forever, except that in their twisted, sadistic self-delusion, they thought they could have their cake and eat it too. They thought to rape Nate's wife, and then when it's all over, kill him anyway. And does anyone ever hold them accountable? Besides Miss Stone, I mean. Well, let's see. Miss Stone was not going down without a fight. Just as she said in her trial, she had a plan. And we see it go into effect with the very next
Overseer Orders 745. Effective immediately, the traditional selection process for Overseer is hereby ended. In lieu of a yearly election, a citizen will be chosen 1 month prior to the start of his or her term with our mainframe's random number generator, ensuring complete impartiality and fairness. Catherine Stone, Overseer.
Now, here's the temptation of a democracy. We keep saying to ourselves, if we just got this guy or this girl elected, then by gosh, they would fix things. And we believe it. That's the whole point. We can lie to ourselves. If a society produces just people and we elect just people and they write just laws, then our society will be just. And we see that here. Miss Stone has changed things to an equal system. It can never be fair to kill someone once a year, but it is equal. However, she is no queen. Her laws last until she dies. She's not even really an overseer, not for long. Can she change rules to keep the system fair? Of course not, because in a democracy, the people have the power, and the people with the most power intend to keep that power intact. And who could be more powerful than the president of the Justice Bloc, Roy Gottlieb, the person who introduced our candidates to us? Why, he might even have more power than the overseer. Will he reflect on the system he champions now that he has gone too far? Will he give up, perhaps? Slink away with his tail between his legs? Many stories leave at this exact moment, and they let the viewer decide for themselves. Not today, though. Not in Vault 11. Let's hear what Roy does next. This is from a security recording from his room.
She can't do this. It's done. We're done. Nothing's done. She's got the authority. The only thing she can't do is change her own fate. Nothing says she can't change the selection process for future overseers. I say she can't. You shouldn't have toyed with her like that, Roy. We still have the majority. We don't vote for anything anymore. I'm not talking about voting. What then? You want to have a sit-in? A hunger strike? Not exactly. Maybe march into her office with torches and pitchforks? Yes. Come on. I mean it. What? Start a revolution? Laws don't outlast their governments. Roy, all we have to do is wait until someone from Justice Block gets picked for Overseer. Then we have them change the law back. There won't be any blocks after the new Overseer is picked tomorrow. Everyone's going to move on. By the time we've reformed, who knows if we'll still be in the majority? We can hold the block together. You don't know that. Besides, what if the computer picks you? What if it picks me? And your solution is to start shooting? Not if we don't have to. Look, we arm up. We go to the lower floors, take some strategic targets. Power, food, water. Just until she turns authority over to us. The other blocks won't support it. They're tired of us having the power. We have the majority. We don't need them. This isn't a vote, Roy. They'll fight back. They've never had the nerve. Hell of a way to test it.
Now keep in mind what Roy is actually saying here. He's not mad that his friends are dead. He's not even mad about the system Miss Stone has decided to use. He's mad that his authority is coming to an end. He might as well be the king democracy's replaced. And what do those kings do when the power is taken from them? Do they fight because they think the new system won't work? Do they fight because they hate the people rebelling? No. They fight because they want to be the one on top. And they'd rather be dead, and everyone with them, than exist in a world where they aren't the one on top. And when democracies last long enough, when power is collected and multiplied over a few generations, you get the same problem. They just aren't called a king anymore. The very thing a democracy is designed to save us from is the same thing they lead us to, a tyrant, with too much power and enough power to defend against anything that threatens him, even if that thing that threatens him is the people they were elected to protect. And that's exactly what happened. The fighting broke out. We don't know what happened to any of our characters. If Roy killed Miss Stone, if Nate and Catherine died together in each other's arms and loved each other until the bitter end. We do know that the entire vault died in the fight. Henry Glover's wife and his 6 kids, the new baby that had just spoken its first word, Dada, they're all dead. Killed at the hands of a friend, a neighbor, a fellow citizen, and probably someone who would have voted for him. Donna Haley, murdered. Not in the cold blood of an election that chose her to kill herself, but in the hot-blooded rage that comes with passion. Gerard Miles, the vault attorney, his devotion to honoring and upholding the law. Do you think those characteristics saved him in the end? Of course not. He died at the hands of someone else, either someone who was jealous of his position, or maybe even killed by someone whose family members he had weaponized the law against. Women died after watching their husbands fight and die to protect them. Children were pulled from their hiding places and murdered. Suddenly, democracy, the rule of law, the spreading of guilt across everyone, none of it matters. When the bill came due and the guilty had to pay, well, in a society where everyone shares the guilt, everyone must die. That's democracy. When the smoke cleared, there were only 5 survivors. We don't know how or why they decided to put their weapons down, but they did. 5 is a much smaller number than the entire population of the vault. You can't hide behind spreading guilt around when there's only 5 of you. So instead of starting over, they chose to let the vault do their dirty work. They went to the mainframe and refused, for the first time, to take it any further. Why sacrifice yourselves one at a time when you can do it to everyone, all at once? I sure hope they voted on this. That way, they were all in agreement. Anyway, they went to the mainframe, and one of them said,
"All right, I know you can hear me, so listen up. There's 5 of us left. 5 out of I don't know how many. So, it's over. We've talked and it's over. We're not gonna send anybody to die anymore. So shut off our water, our gases, or do whatever it is you're programmed to do. But we're done listening to you."
Here again, I hate to cut in so close to the end, but do you hear it? Even here, after they voted to kill their fellows for their entire lives and ignored the cracks until their democracy had failed completely, after they killed enough of their fellow citizens in personal combat to be the last survivors left, they still don't accept any blame. This was all their idea. They were happy living in this system for decades, centuries maybe, happy to send their fellows to their deaths so long as it didn't come too close to them. And here, who are they blaming? The vault itself, the computer. "We're done listening to you," like the vault told them how to choose, like the vault forced them to implement democratic elections to kill their friends, like the vault made them consolidate power in blocks, like it was the vault that used that power to traffic drugs, bribe officials, smuggle things, and rape each other. It's your fault, computer. It's your fault that when you said we had to choose one person per year to kill, we decided to weaponize it, to collectively decide to put fear in our enemies. It couldn't be me. It couldn't be my fault. I'm a good person. I believe in democracy. See, the crime here is not on Vault-Tec. The only crime the computer is guilty of is irony, because we all know what happens when they said this, don't we?
Congratulations, citizens of Vault 11. You have made the decision not to sacrifice one of your own. You can walk with your head held high, knowing that your commitment to human life is a shining example to us all. And to make that feeling of pride even sweeter, I have some exciting news. Despite what you were led to believe, the population of Vault 11 is not going to be exterminated for its disobedience. Instead, the mechanism to open the main vault door has now been enabled, and you can come and go at your leisure. But not so fast. Be sure to check with your overseer to find out if it's safe to leave. Here at Vault-Tec, your safety is our #1 priority.
The Vault didn't kill anyone. They weren't testing diseases or DNA manipulations on their citizens. They said the rule is someone has to die. Just one person, and just once a year. That's probably less than the number of people who would die of old age anyway. Then the people had to decide who and how they would decide. All Vault-Tec did this time was hold a mirror up, and then the people saw themselves. When the humans saw their own nature, well, they didn't like what they saw, did they? They'd rather deny it's even there. But that still isn't the end of our story. There's still the room we entered through, and once again, we get to watch the failings of democracy in action.
Are we really gonna do this? It's open. We could just leave.
I couldn't. Not after that.
We don't deserve to leave.
A shining example. That's what it called us. But we were. We did what we were supposed to. Not by a long shot. Anybody would have done what we did.
You ask me? That's exactly the problem. Now let's get on with this.
I'll go first.
Wait. People should know what happened. They could learn from it. If there's anyone out there at all, I hope they never have to find out. Ready, Harry? Yeah. No, wait!
After everything they went through, did the survivors learn anything? Did they learn that collective thought, collective decision, collective punishment only makes everyone blind? Do they stop trying to use the power of the many to influence the power of the few? No. Here, at the end of all things, despite the majority agreeing that they deserve to die, one of them doesn't want to participate in a mass suicide. He wants to leave. He wants to move on. He should be able to choose what his life is, as all men and women can. But do the others listen? Are they going to let the only survivor walk away? No, that's not how they think, is it? They still believe in the will of the majority, even after seeing where it all led. Their only mistake was giving their only gun to the one guy who wanted to live, and trusting that he'd listen to them. We can find this gun sitting with the 4 skeletons, the murder weapon, the self-defense weapon. I guess in the end, they still got what they wanted, with just one exception. Shame they couldn't embrace the idea of dying by choice back when it really would have mattered. The tragedy of Vault 11 didn't end because the citizens finally embraced morality. It ended because the majority tried one last time to enforce its final decree on a man who chose life. They left themselves at the mercy of the one dissenter they couldn't control. And when you step into that blood-soaked entrance room, you don't find a monument to a peaceful suicide pact. You find 4 skeletons and a single discarded pistol. The weapon of the majority turned into the ultimate tool of self-defense. In the end, the system didn't break because the people remembered their humanity. It broke because one man finally refused to vote and took action instead. But what do you think? Am I once again putting more thought into this than the writer did? Somehow, I don't think so. Not this time. This story has actually existed longer than Fallout New Vegas. In fact, this is based on the short story, The Lottery, by Shirley Jackson. If you think that I'm wrong about this critique, well, that might be fair depending on your reasoning. If you think you have a better explanation, put it in the comments below.
To help you remain tranquil in the face of almost certain death, smooth jazz will be deployed in 3, 2, 1.
But if you liked the video, or it made you think, overthrow democracy and make sure everyone will now be ruled by Sistil Ravenrock, and then subscribe. It really helps with the channel. And until next time, I'll see you around.